who's going to vote against it. So thank you, folks.
Thank you. I don't have any other names from the audience here. Am I missing anyone that wanted to speak on general topics?
I do. Sorry, you'll see me late.
If you'll sign in for us,
I did.
and okay, can you get this to work?
It's frozen.
Your computer is frozen. Could you reset? Sir, come on up.
I'm keeping trying.
Okay, great.
I don't know why.
The timer isn't working, but Stephanie will keep it. You have 3 minutes. If you'll introduce yourself and go ahead and speak.
Good evening, board and residents. My name is Gary Stone. Just a little background. I moved here in 1999 when my wife and I drove into town by mistake. And we stayed for 5 years. My children, 3 older children, had graduated from the high school, 2 of them in 2004. We moved away. I came back in 2020 with a group of new kids. We adopted some children and I brought one of them back here and welcomed to COVID 2 households. In that time period, I developed friendship with some people who wanted to develop the downtown theater. And we approached the theater, we started a group, we paid for a lot of stuff and looking at how we could make the theater work. One of the options, and we were offered multiple millions of dollars by one group of gentlemen who said they would do exactly what this board wants to do. And we didn't want to go that route. We wanted a full entertainment. That's our decision. One of the things I want you to be aware of, I want the residents to be aware of is when we looked at that building, there is a number of things that we had concerns. There was a report given to the board and it's been looked at. There is a crack in the foundation. Now, earlier I had made a comment to Ms. McFadden in which I said that our report showed there was a crack through the full foundation. That's incorrect. That crack is in the foundation, but a real estate agent at a dinner party prior to that report told me there was a crack in the foundation from the screen all the way up. I don't know if that's true or not, but I want you to think about that when you're looking. We don't own the building. If we go forward, election does, but that could become a structural issue for us. The other thing, I've been in that theater. I saw it with a full inspection. There is water damage. The roof will have to have been resealed. The way it's designed, the rivets there, that's minor. But something that you're not thinking about. No electricity and no water for 10 years. The entire system should be gutted and redone. The theater equipment, it's been sitting for 10 years and I saw many movies in that theater and I love that theater. But we would have to look at that. You're looking at a multiple millions of dollars to get it up to an era that we thought about would be a theater and a stage that you would be able to bring in cover bands, comedians, community shows, and that would be wonderful. But is that cost factor going to be there? Something else that I heard, and I don't know the specifics, but I was told about the lease agreement and there was a 10% revenue sharing for third party. I'm saying this from a perspective that I deal with lawsuits and loopholes. 10% of third party, what do they mean specifically? Does CROA fees fall under that or specifically to only what the theater brings in? But if they say 10% of revenues and that's it, I would run through that door in a heartbeat and say, you owe me 10% of all HOA fees because you are bringing them in through that facility. So be very careful when you write it to make sure that we are all protected.
That is the 3 minutes.
Last thing?
No, I'm sorry, sir.
Okay.
That really is the 3
Thank you very
minutes.
much.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
We have 3 hands up online.
Okay.
First have Alina.
Okay. Alina, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start the timer.
Okay.
I'll do it. I'll do it.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay. It's very short anyway, so you don't even need to do the timer. I'd like to recommend the inclusion of voter registration in CROA property, and thank you guys so much for including it on the agenda tonight. It does mean a lot to me, and I find it to be very needed in this community. So I noticed that at CROA sponsored events and at CROA property, and particularly Food Truck Friday, there was inclusion of for-profit businesses like State Farm and Edward Jones. So I think that if we're going to be including those kinds of businesses at CROA run events, I think it's only fair to also have voter registration events, at least at Food Truck Friday, and if not at other CROA properties or other CROA events where, you know, it makes sense to have voter registration. So please consider saying yes if you guys are doing the vote tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And we have Roger.
Next is Roger. If you would, can you hear us, Roger? Hello? Do we unmute Roger?
I can hear you now. Is that okay?
We can. If you'd identify yourself and your dog.
Sure. Roger Nemzik, 717 Honeysuckle Avenue. A couple of things that I wanted to mention. One is on the repairs. I just received notification today to clean my sidewalk 9 times with a total of 22 pages. It's a 40-foot sidewalk, and it was actually cleaned in April, but the rains have, of course, got it dirtier. Just want to mention, it's just crazy that I got that many letters. So that's a concern, needless to say. And the other thing, I think it was changed last year to a 14-day notification. These letters were sent out on June 30th, and unfortunately, I'm a part-time resident in Celebration, so they come to my Pennsylvania address, and I was on vacation, so we're already at the almost at the 15-day notification. I would hope that if there's a problem and there hasn't been a response in 15 days or whatever, that you would maybe reach out and call and say, hey, did you receive these letters or did you not receive that? My email address is on file because I actually received notification about this meeting from the email. So I would appreciate, some consideration there if people aren't right on top of having something done.
Okay, thank you for your comments. We are going to talk about that later in the meeting today. So I'm not ignoring what you had to say. I'm going to save our comments for that point. Okay.
Sure.
Do we have
Perfect.
anyone else with their hand up?
Charles.
Charles.
Understand.
Richards, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
All right, great. Charles Richards, 1020 Banks Row Street. 2 things. So number one, I want to compliment the board and Grand Manners. Obviously, the website has been down for seems like the last few weeks, but I really appreciate the emails and the communication around the meetings and keeping the community informed. I think it's really been a commendable effort to support the community during that time. The second thing I wanted to talk about, I know a few people have talked about the Celebration Hall project. I find it interesting, actually, in the agenda action required, it's referred to as the theater project, C1, which I thought was interesting. It is the Celebration Hall project. But regardless, what concerns me is that the spending of funds for these feasibility studies right now, based on the finance committee meeting, it sounds like we're, I don't want to say going back to the drawing board, but looking at some additional sites. It sounds like we're looking at Boulevard, we're looking at Lakeside, we're looking at Stetson. So I'm concerned about going to feasibility when really don't we need to spend some time with the advisory group looking at those additional sites, maybe doing a version 2 of the initial report. I just think it's a little bit premature to be spending the money at this point. So I would just encourage you to maybe think about that again and, engage the advisory group before we spend any money to engage in those feasibility studies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Are there any other hands up? Thank you all for your comments. We appreciate it. We will circle back around to a number of the things that have come up, and we appreciate all of you reaching out and talking to us. At this point on the agenda, the next item is to adopt the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or changes? Lauren, do we need to change anything on the agenda?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. With that, all those in favor say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
The agenda is adopted 7-0. Next is the approval of minutes. We have 4 different sets of minutes. The board has reviewed all of these previously. The first is the minutes of the CROA board meeting of June 22nd, 2022. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve all 4 sets of minutes.
I have a question.
Well, Hold on, let's get the motion on and then you can ask your question. So there's a motion to approve all 4 sets of minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, now Celia, go ahead.
Okay, on the minutes,
Which ones?
the board meeting.
Okay,
It said that the playground at Lakeside was approved. We voted to approve, so are we moving forward with this playground or was it tabled?
that is not part of the minutes. We will get there, I promise.
Well,
We haven't, we'll get there, but the minutes are what we did at
that's
that
what I'm
meeting. So,
questioning. We voted to
Yes.
approve it.
yes.
Was there
The
any mention
implementation,
in the board meeting, because I'm signing this, was there any mention in that board meeting that it was going to be tabled?
no, not in that
Thank you,
meeting,
Natalie.
not in that meeting.
Thanks, that's what I'm questioning,
Okay.
that's all.
I think you've got a different question. I want to get to the real question, but not here.
But I want to
Okay?
make sure it was in, if I missed it in the
Didn't miss a thing.
minutes.
You didn't miss a thing.
Thank you.
Any other discussion of the minutes, those 4 sets of minutes? Cindy, anything?
No.
Okay. With that, those in favor of approving the 4 sets of minutes, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Nothing. Thank you. Next, can you put up the, I want to just take a couple of minutes and share with you where we stand and what we're working on. Yeah, I think if we could turn, we're going to now do something very dangerous.
Elaine's
We're going to allow a board member to actually move equipment.
Can you see it all right?
Does that help?
Since I'm over here, I'll look at it with you because you can't see it over there.
So, well, maybe we will. Can you-
I'll do it for you.
Okay, here we go. So we are really talking about the things that we're trying to do together. And to the point of those of you that are worried about the theater, don't overread that. It's just a placeholder for the broader set of subjects that we're working at. But I wanted to update you on what we've been doing. Go ahead. The Celebration Hall Advisory Group held a town hall on June 23rd. We had about, I think we had
45 in this room and about 22 online.
Yeah, so we had quite a few, and there were a lot of comments that were received offline. There was a lot that went on. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, you went back. You're too far. Can you go back one? Maybe not. Okay. Sure you can't? Okay, one more. Or go forward one more.
Oh, okay.
No.
It's
There we
all
go.
with my
Okay.
screen.
So during that town hall, board members were here, the members of the advisory group were here. We've got the chair of the advisory group here tonight and some other members. We listened to what you had to say. We listened to the comments that we've received. Go ahead. You recall that the advisory group was asked to evaluate 3 options: the 851 building, of location on Lot B, and the theater. They gave us an interim report. It was an exceptionally well done report. We're very appreciative of that. And at that point, the board decided that it would be good, because we had listened to the community, to request the advisory group to evaluate 3 more options, which we have now done. Go ahead. The first of these options, click, is the Stetson building. Now, we've asked management to take a look. This is not for sale, but there is a first floor rental possibility. They are talking about a short-term lease, and we are exploring what those costs would be and what would be involved. Management is doing that work because it's basically just finding out where we stand today. There's not a whole lot else to say about it at this point, but we're actively looking at Stetson. Go ahead. The second thing that we are doing is we engage the advisory group to look at Lakeside and a couple of different things there: putting out the canopy, turfing out the great lawn, upgrading or rebuilding into the Jones room. Those are all fairly significant steps. And so we asked the advisory group to start looking into that. You heard in the public comments, there were questions about what the advisory group was doing. This is one of the things that they are doing. I believe they held a workshop, am I right, last week, in which they are continuing to work on that. Now, I'll just remind everybody that,
Sorry.
that's all right. Don't move it till I tell you. Uh, we are sunsetting the advisory group at the end of July, so they're working under a time deadline. But I've been sure that they can do the work that they need to do in that time frame. Okay, now, Stephanie. We're also looking at what's called Lot 7 on Celebration Boulevard. This is empty land. The possibility here would be to purchase and build. You heard that from some of the public speakers tonight. We're asking management to explore that with the Celebration Company. They're the owners of the property. And again, we're just trying to get the basics and find out what might be available. Now, some people have said, why don't you look at this location or that location or another location? The board originally began by looking at 12 or 13 locations. We narrowed it down to 3 so that the advisory group could get their work done. Then we added one more item for them within this time frame. We are, in fact, though, looking at these additional possibilities to see what might be most effective for the community. Okay. Now, where we are in the process. Step 1. The advisory group was formed. Step 2. They studied and researched 3 options. Go ahead. We solicited feedback from the community. We expanded the study. That's where we are right now. Keep going. Final report from the advisory group is due on August 1st to the board. Keep going. Then there will be an evaluation team to look at those different sub items and to see where we go. It is not a, strictly speaking, theater evaluation team, and that is really a misnomer in the agenda tonight. It is an overall evaluation. Next. Then we will report to the board and the community, and we will make some decisions at some point as we move forward. So for those of you that think we're in a headlong rush to do something, we're not. We're going step by step, and I hope that this explains that process a little better. Go ahead. Now, we also have another advisory group, which has not gotten as much attention, but is, I think, certainly important, and that's our communications advisory group. They have been meeting, go ahead, and doing their work. They had conducted an audit of our systems on the website. They've looked at social media, they've looked at print media, they've looked at email, they've looked at other things. There's a survey. You probably saw the links to that. They've been out doing that work. Go ahead. And that survey, I believe, last time I heard, 150 or so responses, I think is what I heard most recently. So we're going to find out about that. Go ahead. Tomorrow night. There's a town hall here on July 14th. I don't know the time of that meeting.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. And it will be an open meeting. We encourage you to come, ask questions, comment. It will be a regular board meeting, but run by the advisory group. So encourage you all to see and hear what that group has been doing, and we're excited about their work. Okay, next. So in the 130 plus days of this board's tenure, what's been accomplished outside of those items? Go ahead. We've been taking action in this period of time. Go ahead. There we go. We've authorized an expenditure over the next 12 months of over $2 million. This represents a fair amount of deferred maintenance and spending that didn't happen over the last 2 years because of COVID. And so this is money that could have or should have been spent over that time. Now it's being spent, but we're not writing a check today for $2 million in case anyone's worried. It is over an ongoing forward period of time. Go ahead. And it represents 109 different projects. That is an extraordinary number of projects. We have tonight with us Roger Edwards and Corbin Setti from Grand Manners. Corbin is the Senior Vice President of Operations. He came in from Nevada. You've heard of that place, or is it Nevada?
Nevada.
Nevada. And I think it's fair to say, Corbin, that most of the communities that Grand Manners works with do not have this level of velocity and activity.
More than fair to say, yes.
Okay. So we're busy. There's a lot going on. Go ahead. So tonight, the board will be taking a look at 18 action items, landscaping items of $154,000, repairs and painting items of about $79,000, total of $234,000. If you've been following along, we're actually slowing down now. We've actually done so much that we're now getting to the point where we're beginning to tighten up, and there are, Natalie, an extraordinary number of projects about to be finished up. And you'll hear about
About
that.
22 of them will be finished by end of next week.
Okay. And I think you can see I hope you can see the difference. When you drive around town, I hope you can see that things are cleaning up. I know that Brian from Exquisite weighed about 20 pounds more before we started all this process. Jacob from New Leaf, probably the same. And we appreciate the work that you guys are doing. It's a tremendous amount of work, but we also know that residents are putting in a lot of work. And I think that's commendable for all of us. And so we're working on all of that. So there's a lot going on. And I just wanted you to hear that tonight as we get underway. Thank you very much. That's all I got there. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda for landscaping items. This is items A1 through 11. The board has reviewed these with management. We've looked at the background and the sheets. And so at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items A1 to 11.
So moved.
Is there a second? A second for Brian. Any discussion? Yes, go ahead. Steve.
Point of order.
Yeah.
The consent agenda is not supposed to have any discussion on it. I didn't think. I thought that was the reason to have the consent agenda.
Yeah.
If we're gonna vote on something, we need to discuss it.
Well, the consent agenda typically is not something that's discussed, but in the interest of having you heard out, go ahead, Celia, what's your question?
I have a couple of comments.
Before that.
Yeah.
Can we decide whether we're going to go with Robert's Rules of Order on this or not?
Then I would like number 8 and number 10 pulled so we can discuss it.
We've already accepted the agenda.
When did we accept it? We didn't just vote.
We
on
voted on the agenda.
it.
at
When
the
did we
beginning-
vote on it?
On the beginning of the meeting.
We need to discuss these motions to approve it. We didn't approve anything. I'm sorry.
Celia, you want to discuss 8 and 10, is that the
Yes, I
issue?
do.
All right, I'm going to pull those two items from the consent agenda. We'll discuss them separately. We now have a motion. Who made the original motion? Was it Jim? We accept the motion, the revised motion to adopt items 1 through 11, not including 8 and 10. I can't figure all that out.
I will.
Okay, Brian, you'll accept that. All right, this time, all those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. We will take items 8 and 10, and they will move down to the regular action items.
Thank you.
Next is the consent agenda maintenance. This is items 1 through 6. Do I have a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, I think we've got 7-0. Got it? Jose, how are we doing with the camera for the room?
Working.
Okay, all right. All right, at this time, we are now to the action items. I'm going to take items 8 and 10 from the consent agenda. Let's talk about those first. And so a motion to approve item A8, which is a motion to approve landscaping improvements at Central Park by New Leaf in the amount of $24,985 from CROA replacement reserves. Is there a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
All right, discussion. Go ahead, Celia.
Okay, so I know this will probably have to be done. $24,895. But back on March 16th, when this was originally brought up, and we were gonna, actually, Jackson, that night, he says, exactly where is Central Park? And Cindy and I, but she can speak for herself, adamantly said that Yellowstone should not be part of this project because Yellowstone has not been maintaining what they should have been doing. Maybe we should have gave it to Exquisite. Maybe we should have gave it to New Leaf. I had the pictures. Pictures don't lie. Yellowstone did nothing. But the motion passed 5-2. Cindy and I voted against it. Now the residents have to eat $24,895 because they should have never been given this job because clearly, go ahead, Lauren.
Celia, we've not paid Yellowstone any of the money that was authorized in that March meeting. They
Okay,
did not
but-
complete the job to satisfaction. We've also not paid them for a number of other bills because they haven't completed jobs to satisfaction. We're in process with Tom Slayton with them on that one. So there's no additional expenditure.
Well, I understand that, but it leads me to say now, because it's going to legal counsel, we're paying a lawyer to figure out what to do with Yellowstone. So maybe in the future, as a board member, management, I trust management 100%. Natalie, you are awesome. But when you have another set of eyes looking at something, saying, here's the pictures, just try to just go along with somebody else visualizing this. So it has to be done. The park has to be done because they butchered it.
Okay.
Okay?
Brian, did you have a comment?
You could look at me all you want. You already smacked me tonight, so you could give me the.
I did.
Anything else. did.
Come on, I was.
No, seriously. Go ahead. You don't want to say.
We as a group approved that Yellowstone didn't do the work they got paid. We replaced Yellowstone. Now we're approving somebody else to do the work. I mean, what?
Right, I'm just going back to that night to refresh everybody's memory that
Okay.
we,
I think Joe,
you got it?
So,
That's all.
so is the point that you two were right and we were wrong?
Yes.
Okay,
That's all.
excellent.
But I don't want to say
But,
that.
but don't say that we're wasting people's money when we're not.
Well,
You did,
it,
you did.
okay, maybe I worded it wrong. If
Well,
we
you didn't
did-
have all the
At
facts.
this-
You
at
didn't
this
know the
point-
facts.
At this point, I'm going to call the vote. Those in favor of the motion, say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Let's look at item number 10. This is a motion to approve landscaping improvements at the Civic Corridor Small Dog Park by New Leaf in the amount of $51,090 from replacement reserve funds. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Discussion. Celia?
Yeah, I was at the small dog park yesterday. We spent $56,500 for the large dog park. The dog park misters rate, the solar lights, which should have been done a long time ago for the dog park, they deserve that, and I don't have one problem with that. But I was in there yesterday. The park doesn't look any worse than anything, not that our parks look bad, but $51,000 right now for the small dog park. I don't think it's necessary to spend that money just because we have it. I don't have anything against dogs, but $51,000 is a lot of money to spend, and not to mention, I found it very interesting trying to get into the dog park. The fencing is amazing. The access to get into the park is amazing, but we don't even have an access card to get into our fields. I just think it's a lot of money right now to spend, and it's not necessary. It looks beautiful, except for some areas that are in the shade. That
Any other comments? All right, let's take a roll.
Do we have management explain why they think it needs to be done now?
Yes, so I have received several complaints that the small dog park was neglected when we did the renovations. And Brian can speak to this as well. I've even had people reach out to me on LinkedIn to complain about it. And they're stating that it's not up to celebration standards, and they're wanting the sod to be revamped and also the stones, so it resembles the large dog park.
And do you think it's a necessity to do it right now, or could it wait?
I think it could wait, me personally.
Wait a year?
We're gonna have a lot of unhappy people.
Let me ask this. What did the dog park committee say?
They agree it needs to be done.
Dog park committee wanted it done.
of course,
Okay, any other questions or comments? David, you're the liaison, right, to the dog park committee?
Yes.
Do you have any comment?
No, if they've endorsed that, I think that speaks for itself. My only question is, it's a dovetail on timing. Is July and August the best time to put in new sod, or is that better done in the fall? And I defer to the landscape personnel for that. It's not a
It would
question of whether, it's a question of when. I'm just thinking of sod taking. What's the best timing?
So we would approve it. That doesn't mean the work will be done right away. And Brian. from
Okay.
That, we're probably on a backlog of 2 months on projects that are being approved throughout the community, just because you have to order the sod, you have to order the pebbles, you have to, coordinate the tree
Right.
trimmer.
Okay.
So it was probably more likely fall that it would be done.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's a good clarification.
Thanks,
No
Dave.
problem.
Cindy?
This is one of the ones I had a question on. Because on this cover sheet that you provide, in the column, next to the column, it says budgeted amount. It refers to actually not a budgeted amount, but money that has been put aside in the reserve study, anticipating this. So the $45,000 for fields, crushed gravel, and replenishment is gone already. So is this a typo, or are you tapping into the 2032 fields natural turf renovation?
About 2032.
Because
I don't think it can wait till 2032, so we would have to tap into it at some point.
Yeah, I don't think we can do that.
Right.
Can I speak a little bit about, so we have,
Into the microphone.
yeah, thanks. I think we have operating cash, we have replacement reserves, we have capital improvement reserves. We do an engineering study every 3 years under Florida law. And when we do a replacement reserve study, they will look at what was planned and what is planned into the future, and they will move things around. So really how you have to think about it is they'll every 3 years say, okay, you have a pot of cash of X, $2 million. Based upon their evaluation, and in this case it'll be 2022. I'm sure this amount came out of the old study. Lauren, who's online there, worked with them to talk about things that needed to be accelerated and stuff like that. So really, I almost think about it like, and Jackson talked about, for example, the $2 million before that we had spent, which sounds like a lot of money, but it needs to be thought about. Some of those are operating expenses. 900,000 of it, I've said it before, is the fact that we replaced Yellowstone with New Leaf and Exquisite. And so there was already budgeted expense there. There was an incremental increase. So that wasn't all new spending. So it's a combination of replacement funds. It is a combination of operating funds. And we have $2.5 million of capital improvement funds, which above $250,000, the board can use for any purpose. It could be used for capital improvement, but it also could be used for operating, or it could be used for replacement. So we have flexibility there. And so then your question is a perfectly valid question, but it resets itself every time we do an engineering study. So that is why it's getting drawn forward beyond a shadow of a doubt. I have seen, I'm 4.5 years on the board. I've seen times when we had a replacement reserve budget of 50,000 and we also spent 30,000. So it works both ways and is really a barometer of measurement every 3 years, if that helps.
Yeah, let me jump to Bill. You wanted to speak?
Yeah, so just that, I believe the 2032 number is a recurring number because it seems to happen from time to time. And that's very typical of the reserve study where, we paint the bench this year and then we paint it 8 years from now and 8 years after that. Same with many of the other repairs have a recurring factor. But either way, the reserve study is not, they're not budget numbers in the real sense. They're planning numbers. And any individual number can go up or down depending on how long ago it was forecast, because it could be a 10-year-old estimate, because now's the year that we said 10 years ago we needed to do that. And also costs change. So numbers are up this year because construction's up, and they may be down 3 years from now. and who knows what they're going to be in 2032. So the numbers themselves are averaged and are planning numbers, not, we're not spending the money in 2032 and 2022. We're just being aware that there's more money to be spent in 2032.
Okay, so I think you're saying much the same thing that Brian's saying.
Yeah,
At this point, I'm going to call the vote as a roll call vote. I'll start with you, David. Motion to approve.
Yes. Yes.
Bill?
second, approve,
No,
sorry,
motions. Are you voting in favor or against?
in favor.
Brian?
I'm in favor, but I'd like to add a comment. The reason I'm voting in favor is it's been looked at by management. We have lots of people who come through and say, I need this and you don't need this, and I need this and you don't need this. We end up having to rely on experts. And if we got the management, if we got the management company, if we got the landscaper, the dog park committee, then we make value decide. There's a certain dollar amount over which you say, okay, it's too much money. What the heck is going on here? But I think we have to trust the professionals, which is what I'm
So
saying.
your vote is yes. Cindy?
Well, to say that, your response was the dog park committee wanted it done. And we asked if it's something that needs to be done.
Your thoughts, Brian? And you did the large dog park. So what is your thoughts on the small?
What are they doing at the small dog park?
Replacing the sod where there's missing sod, putting the new pebbles, tree trimming. Same scenario you did at the large dog park.
They're using the same size rocks that we used on the large.
They're gonna be a smaller.
Smaller. Okay. The sod that they're putting in, how does it-
I believe it
So
is,
are they matching that?
I think it's Zoysia.
So they're just filling in?
Celebration Bermuda.
Collaboration.
Oh, they're doing Bermuda. And that small dog.
We're in the middle of the vote here. This is,
Well, but
you can make your statement, but I'm not anxious to go much further in depth. So I'll just say what you'd like and then cast your vote. Is that fair?
I have nothing to say and I'm going to abstain.
You're going to abstain.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, fair enough. Celia, your vote?
No.
You vote no. Jim?
I vote yes.
I vote yes. The motion passes. I would ask management
Jackson.
to get with New Leaf, find out the timing, find out the answers to the questions about whether or not there's a better way to do this. But I agree. I think we're being told that this is the recommendation. We should follow that absent some strong reason not to. All right, next.
Jackson,
Next
before,
item.
Jackson,
Yes,
if
I'm
I may,
sorry.
just before you go, no, some of the questions that were raised during this are the sorts of things that I think should be in that written summary. So I know that I rely a lot on the written summary. I did not catch that, how did the dog park committee weigh in? That's the sort of thing that is helpful for us, and I think it helps to expedite our discussion. Just a comment for the future.
That's a good point.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
And just as a point of order, and as an explanation, anything that's on the consent agenda, we would ask board members to make their decision to pull from the consent agenda before we get to the meeting. And we're glad to do that. There's no restriction on pulling from the consent agenda, but I think the orderly progress of business probably goes better if we don't have to do it during the meeting. So,
Yes.
okay. All right. We're now to the action items on the regular agenda. The first is a motion to approve creation of an evaluation team to further investigate the viability. It says the theater project, but it's really the Celebration Hall project in a broader sense. So I would entertain a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
So let me explain what this is about. As you know, the Celebration Hall Advisory Group sunsets at the end of this month, and there is still work to be done and questions, as you've heard tonight from a variety of speakers, about things that we still don't know about, whether it's inspection of the buildings or it's the quality of the work or renting or other things. So what we'd like to do is to create a 5-member evaluation team, 1 member from the advisory group, 1 member from the finance committee, the treasurer of the board, and the 2 liaisons from the board to the advisory committee. That group would then be charged with going the next step, trying to find out what information can be gathered and presented with respect to specific options as we're moving forward. So that's where we are, and open it up for discussion. Okay.
I mean, I'll make one comment.
Yeah.
Finance Committee has requested a lot of information. I mean, people have talked about the August 1st date. There's no way we're going to be done August 1st. I mean, the community needs to understand that. And the August 1st date for the advisory groups was set because you needed a timeline, or we'd have a multi-decade type project. But you're still setting here, what are the theater terms? What are some of the other terms that you'd even have to evaluate? This decision is not going to be made without a lot of public information. And right now, if you told me you had darn near no financial information, I would tell you were correct. So the part of this group is actually to sit there and say, even something as simple as negotiating with Lexa, somebody's got to talk to Lexa to say, okay, what are the terms that would come out of this? So that is the thought process here, is you can't do it with 29 people, but you can't come back to the community and say, here's the financial ramifications of even the things we're adding, the things we had, without some financial information. If that's a fair summary.
Yeah, thank you. Other comments or questions?
This is going to make me very unpopular with my fellow board members. Let me start by saying that for all the surveys that we've done over the last 20 years, I know that at the top of my list was a performing arts center. I can tell you that right now, because one of the reasons that Tim and I found Celebration so attractive was they had a community theater group when we moved here, and we thought that was great. It's not here anymore. So sorry. So when I was first told that the theater might be an option for this, I was very excited. Using the theater and have the seats in it, blah, blah, blah. But then I walked through it and, considering possible uses, the costs involved, renovations, rent expense, operational expenses, I started to think that maybe this wasn't the best use of our money, since we're renting it and not buying it. So recently, it's also come to light that this building is going to need some major repairs. We're already up to $333,000. It could be as high as, well, there's going to be works that doesn't include plumbing that needs to be done, and electricity. So there's another $500,000. So taking all this into consideration, I believe that our monies would be better spent in either purchasing an existing property or building a larger facility where this building sits right now, to house growing staff, meeting rooms, an activity center where both adults and kids could gather and enjoy themselves, and flex space for programs and classes. Being said, I will no longer support anything that has to do with investing more time or spending money on assessing the feasibility of the theater as a solution to fill the community's growing needs. In my opinion, it's time to regroup and focus on some of the other more viable options that are still at the table.
You have fans.
I would think so.
Yeah. Other comments, Jim?
Well, I don't have a prepared statement, so I
tend to ramble.
I hesitate to rebuttal, but all those are good, valid points. We've discussed them, I believe, and I guess I'm just wondering why this was done now and tonight.
Well, because there's two things on here that one of them involves spending money, and the other one involves putting together yet another team. And I think it's a waste of time. And I just
the team is for all all the options.
This is
Evaluation team, yes.
Go ahead, Jim, your comment.
Yeah, the evaluation team is for all of them. Also, a lot of people talk about renting and owning. Many of those people lease their cars. We're not talking about our house. We're not talking about our main place to be. That's number one. Number two, a lot of people have talked about the cost. I would like to defer back to Jackson to remind everyone about the study that's happening in July, that we're being assisted by management.
Yeah, we do have some of those things happening to give us more information, but essentially the motion in front of us is a motion to continue to gather information. It's not to spend more money. It's a different matter.
That's part 1 and 3.
I understand that, and I understand that you've indicated your opposition to all things related to the theater.
Right.
Brian?
Okay, first of all, I'd like to make it clear that I have not decided how I'm voting on anything. And I think board members are more open than probably residents realize to voting yea or nay on several of the opportunities. Having entered into this damn conversation, to stop it now, I think would be a disaster. We're pulling together a lot of information on different alternatives. And if we go into a nasty recession, we may sit there and say we're going to defer all of this for 2 years. But the last thing, please, as residents, don't sit there and say we don't need any information. Yes, we're spending, I will vote yes, I promise you, on a couple of them down here to spend $10,000 because we would be smarter. Because we really, Lexington, let's just be honest. Lexington owns the downtown. The downtown creates value for every one of our homes. We just need to be honest. A vibrant downtown matters. Whether we own or rent the theater, I really don't think I give two hoots about. Somebody ultimately will, but we want a vibrant downtown. It creates a lot of value in our homes. And we need to spend enough money to finalize the report that Dury and her team are working on and to say, here are the financial ramifications, whether you talk about this building, whether you talk about Lakeside, whether you talk about Lot B, wherever, so that there's an active report that future boards can reference and say, okay, here's all this work that was done. So I think I just don't want to stop prematurely. We may kill the theater if we do. God bless it. We did the proper work and move forward.
Well, and
Let me hear from the rest of the board. I know we've got community members who want to speak. Our protocol is to let board members have their conversation, then we'll get to the community. David, do you have anything that you want to say?
I see Bill's hand up first, so I defer to Bill, and then I do have a couple comments.
Okay, go ahead, Bill. Sorry, I can't see you. You're a little fuzzy, so go ahead.
Okay, well, as far as the theater, I think we need, as Brian said, I think we need to continue doing research. And throughout the entire process, and frankly, as long as the theater's been closed, I've been hearing all kinds of horror stories about the condition of the building. I don't know anything about a cracked foundation. And somebody said to somebody that may be interesting, but not necessarily accurate. We've heard stories for years about the roof leaking. The evaluation committee has been in the building. I've had 3 inspections in the last few months. I've seen no evidence of leaking. I've smelled no mildew. It's in surprisingly good condition. But for us to go any further with this, and Cindy was rattling out some numbers there. I don't know where her numbers are from, because as far as I know, there are no numbers. At the moment, we're trying to get to a point where we know what operating costs are, and those are going to be tied to a negotiation, which may or may not occur because we may pull the plug on this down the road. We don't know what it's going to cost to fix the building up because nobody's done an analysis of it. And one of the action items to be discussed in a few minutes is to get somebody in there qualified to make some judgments as to what we're going to have to do to fix the place, and gives us some reliable numbers to start with. At the moment, as Brian said, there are no real numbers to look at. And that's okay, because at the moment we've tasked the committee with coming up with a program. Like, if we had it, what would we do with it? And they've been doing an excellent job of that, looking at alternatives and things. But now is the time we have to drill down and get the facts, so that in a future meeting, we can have enough information to say yay or nay, or yay under this agreement and nay. We just need to do more due diligence at this point. And this is not a lot of investment to avoid making a bad decision. And it could help us make a good decision.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
David?
Yeah, thank you. Seems to me that action item 1 is a no-cost item, but it's the right thing to do because it lets 5 people, I think you listed the roles that they would come from, 5 people to dive into numbers, and then we start working with facts, as Bill was just saying. I also agree with Brian's point that to do anything different right now, I think is disastrous. We've come a long ways. We're gathering a lot of information. We're talking about options. When we get to items 3 and 4, I think each of those is $10,000, if I recall the numbers correctly. which is small investment to get good external expert opinion on each of those two items. So I too will, am in favor of 3 and 4 as we get to those, because it's just gathering information that will be good grounding for the board to make decision moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Celia, do you have anything? Okay, we have some comments online. I don't know if you have any comments here in the room. I'm gonna, let me go online first, and then I'll come back to the room. Okay, who do we have?
Eileen Barr?
Eileen Barr, okay. Go ahead, Eileen. Is she unmuted? Okay, Eileen, can you hear us?
Just there.
Eileen?
She may need to dial back in.
Okay, we'll come back to you, Eileen, when you get back in. Who else do we have online? Anyone else? Okay, in the room, Paul?
In hearing all
I'm
this,
gonna have you come
Oh,
up here,
sorry.
just so that everybody can hear.
in hearing all this about the theater, the thing that pops up for me as a former member of the zoning board of Neptune Township, New Jersey, as well as chair for over 5 years, member for 12, dealing with a lot of historical buildings, because Ocean Grove, New Jersey, which is a historical community, is part of that, and we oversaw a building such as the theater, which is, I believe, called a iconic structure for the town. If there's issues that are structural, and if there's issues with leaking of water, that is the responsibility of the owner to fix, not you. Number one. If truly, and the danger here is if that's happening, it's something called demolition by neglect, which is what happens. If somebody wants to get rid of a historical property, just don't do any maintenance on it for years. And then what happens? They have to tear it down. So I'd be careful about what they're doing or not doing with that particular piece of property, or you're going to lose an iconic structure. But it's their responsibility. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I saw another hand up. Was it David? Okay, come on up.
Like I said earlier, you're saying about buying property on a boulevard. You own the property right here on Celebration Avenue, the Civic Corridor. There's about 4 acres there. Why wouldn't you want to put the building there? You want an iconic building? That's where they were supposed to put it, right there. You have a traffic light there so you can get in and out. There's no need to buy property.
Thank you.
No, I can't something.
Is Eileen on? Can we hear her?
Hello.
Go ahead, Eileen.
Can you hear us? It's actually Jerry. Who
Hear
wants
you
to say-
now.
Can you hear us?
Him.
We
Yeah.
can.
Okay, so what I wanted to say was Jerry Barr, 1138 Mosaic Drive. I'm all for information. I just don't think a homeowners association should be the one negotiating or even getting information relative to a CAM lease. Do we have a real estate attorney, not Slayton, but a really smart real estate attorney that's going to advise this advisory group?
The answer is yes, we do. All right, any other comments? Okay, we've got a couple. Go ahead.
First I heard of that.
And I'd like to ask everybody, we're still talking about this particular motion to approve creation of an evaluation team. And I know that there's a lot of discussion about the wisdom of the whole project. And I appreciate that input, but we're still trying to make this one determination. So that focus is helpful to us.
Sure. My name is Robert Morris. I live on Campus Street across from the elementary school. And I just recently moved here from Tampa. In Tampa, I used to own a community theater, which I recently sold. It's not a very money-making business. It's a nonprofit. And the biggest issue I had with that was parking. When you have people coming from out of town, and I know downtown there's not enough parking that would support even a movie theater there. So I love your idea of this space, or more of a mixed use space, but theaters are not moneymakers at all. Not at all. I had it for 4 years. I sold it to a brewery, and it was a historic building. Not a moneymaker. So, and if you have a consultant from a theater, you should have that on your 5 group
We do.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, I saw one more. Mr. Stone, is that correct?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just addressing a comment in reference to what was there. One, there is a crack in the foundation. I have seen the crack. Two, there are multiple leaks in the ceiling. I saw the leakage. So there is there. The motion to invest, to look at it, I believe it is a sound up to the point of spending money because you've seen enough. I've provided a copy of a report that our group paid for that was from professionals, and that if you all, one person said, well, it wasn't really a good one, then we can sue the individual because they gave us a poor report. That's enough there to show you, do we want to go forward? And the gentleman made a comment about parking. If you are going to look, you need to look at how do we address the parking? Again, I loved it. I lived here 20 years ago and loved that theater. But I don't think for, as one person said, the homeowners, it's a viable cost.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
All right, I want to go ahead and move this conversation on. Thank you all for your comments. At this point, okay, one last comment online, and then I am going to move forward. Mr. Richards, go ahead.
Thanks, Jackson. So as I said in the beginning, I just, $10,000 here, $10,000 there. You're evaluating 3 more sites. So what happens if you determine that, hey, these are great sites. These are going to work for the community for our needs. $10,000, $10,000, $10,000, right? It adds up over time. And then what? And then, I get it. You need to spend money to evaluate these, but we're still really in the infancy, right? With evaluating these, and it just doesn't make sense to put all of that money into it. I think we just need to really rethink that. And then, really to the point of the evaluation team, my only concern is the selection. I would just encourage you to maybe bring in some fresh eyes, maybe some unbiased views to really look at the data, the report that the advisory group has provided and the finance committee. But, someone who's really been maybe on the outside just to give some different perspective. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and take the vote. I'm going to do it as a roll call vote. The motion is to approve creation of an evaluation team to further investigate the viability of the Celebration Hall project. Start with you, Jim.
Yes.
Celia?
Yes.
Sydney?
And it's more than just the theater, correct?
Yes.
It's for everything because it says
Then
the
yes.
theater project here, so it's deceiving.
Okay.
I just read you the motion.
Yeah.
Okay. Your vote is yes, Sydney? Brian?
I'm a yes.
David?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion passes 7-0. Brian?
I realize it's out of order, but may I ask that we do 3 and 4 before 2,
Yeah.
just so we can have.
Yeah, I think one conversation. Is that acceptable to the rest of the board that we move items 3 and 4 up next?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So item 3 is a motion to approve the Celebration Town Center Theater Building Assessment Survey. This item is an expenditure out of the Capital Improvement Fund to engineers and architects in the amount of $10,500. The purpose is to provide a study of the architectural, mechanical, and electrical aspects of the theater, to provide the Finance Committee and the CROA Board with concrete numbers for a potential modification of the theater space based on initial recommendations of the Celebration Hall Advisory Group. Is there a motion to approve?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yes.
All right, now discussion. Brian, let me go Brian first.
So, yeah, so just to clarify, a lot of people have said, what are the facts around the theater? The reason we're proposing to spend this $10,500 is to have professionals come in and say, this is the true state of the theater. So that we don't get into he said, she said, but okay, here is a professional document that says, here's what it is. And as I understand it, Jackson and others, this is a document that would come back and say, here's a problem here, here's a problem here. You would need to spend $500 here, $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, so that we, as a group, could sit here and say, here's a professional evaluation of the theater in whatever manner we might want to proceed.
Let me go to Lauren for just a second. Can you speak to why you felt this was appropriate?
Yeah, I think it gives a full picture to the finance committee and to the board in terms of not only what architectural or engineering deficiencies there may or may not be in the building, but it also addresses any code provisions that we may or may not have to bring the theater up to based on current and updated statutes. So I think overarchingly, if you want to get a big picture of what we could and could not do with the theater, this is going to be the sound basis for the finance committee to give you the true numbers that you're going to spend.
Okay, right.
And Lauren, when you say we, that might not be CROA, that might be Lexa. You're just saying that is an amount of money that somebody would have to spend because of reasons X, Y, and Z. Correct statement?
Correct.
Other comments from the board? David?
Yeah, I have two. As I read the scope of services, it looks mainly about the building that is owned by Lexon. It does not, as I'm reading this, it does not include potential improvements that someone would make to make it a performing arts, to make one of the theaters performing arts. Am I correct with that?
Yeah, it's really just looking at the status of the building and what we would be talking about. I think if there were ever a point at which we reached negotiations, we would need to know what the status of the building is and what work has to be done.
So this would not talk about a viability of knocking out a wall or putting in a window or skylights. This has been talked. Is that correct?
Let me defer to Lauren. Is that correct?
It's taking those items into consideration because I provided the interim report to LRK, but
Okay.
the basis is what needs to be done to bring the building up to functionality and to code. Because if you have to expend a certain amount of dollars, then to do whatever you're going to do to the building, then you also have to bring it up to current code.
Got
It
it.
just
Got
depends
it.
on how much the building
Right.
is valued and how much you're spending. So there's a
Okay.
lot of different variables.
Okay, that's helpful. Then the only other question is a technical one, funding source. Is it appropriate for this to be out of the capital improvement fund since it's a expenditure on a facility that we do not own?
Lauren?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's appropriate based on it's an exploratory project and you would, if it's a new build potential, then you would use capital improvement funds. I can get Tom to give the final say.
Let me ask the treasurer.
No. Capital improvement funds above 250,000 could be used for any purpose that the board wants them to be used for. So there is no argument about can we use those funds.
Just a correction, that's under 250,000.
Oh,
You said
yeah, well, over 250, as long as there's 250,000 in the capital improvement fund, we're spending funds and still retain that. Lauren, if we look at the sound system or if we looked at the state of the projectors, that would be outside this project, correct? And that's something Tom Hull's going to be looking at with other things?
Correct, but I believe Tom Hull has looked at it, and I know that the group that Evergreen works with has looked at them and has made their recommendations. I believe Roger's there, and he might be able to speak more to that.
In the interest of time, any other board members have comments?
No, thank you.
So I'm looking at a 15-page report that that gentleman referred to earlier. That was just done in October of last year.
September 21st.
A crack is a crack. A leak is a leak. You know, I can't see spending any money for somebody to tell us the same thing that's already in this report. I doubt that anybody's been in there to fix it. There's moisture between the walls. This is a very detailed professional report. And I can't imagine that the one that we will be getting for $10,000 is going to be much different than that, other than they may attach a cost to it.
I don't think we can presume what has or hasn't been done there. They had a current lease payer at the time. And so probably wasn't any motivation since they weren't using it. We don't know whether they've addressed any of this in the last 9 months.
Well, then.
Okay. Celia?
So we have the building inspection report that Casey was so generous to give us. it says right in the report overview that there are concerns. There are major concerns with the plumbing, the roof, the air conditioning, the interior. There's moisture was found in the wall. There's a large crack was found in the foyer on the right side. Why do we need another report? Because now we're gonna get this really big company to come in, and I'm sure they're gonna find even more stuff wrong with the building.
Well, if they do, I think that's to our advantage to know it.
But
Well,
the $10,500 is for the
for study
engineering.
by LRK and EXP.
I have it right in front of me.
Okay.
It's $5,500 for the engineering report, and it's $5,000 for the architectural
The
design.
total of 10,500.
500. So if we already had the building inspected, why are we spending more money?
Well, let me give you one response. The inspection report wasn't done for us. And in law, that means that we don't have privity. It's not our report. We can't rely on it.
Well,
And-
if the person that hired the engineer firm to do the report handed it over to us,
It does not matter.
does that mean that this
In
report
my-
is not
in my
valid?
non-legal view, it does not matter. Bill, you want to speak to this?
Oh, yes, I certainly do. The report is the wrong report written by the wrong person. They're not qualified to do a code review. The report that is being referred to is done by a guy who does two-family homes for purchase by buyers. This is not the same as a large commercial building that was built for special purposes. And a crack is not a crack. I mean, there are all kinds, and they're significant and insignificant. I would not rely on that report for anything we're doing here, because saying he's an inspector and he gave us a report, well, yeah, I mean, veterinarians do doctor work. Would you take your kid to one? It's not the same. It's not at all the same. And I would not rely on it, separate from any legal issues with who owns the rights to it and the liabilities to it. So we need
All right,
professionals with the right
I'm going to go ahead
licenses.
and call the vote.
So I have one more thing to ask about
Quickly,
this
please.
from LRK. Proposal assumptions. I don't know what that means. One, review meeting with the owner's representative to discuss findings. Structural evaluation is not included in this scope of work. One site visit by each discipline, excludes exploratory demolition, excludes testing and or identifying hazardous material. I don't understand what that means, so I can't vote for something if I don't understand what those assumptions mean.
So you should abstain.
I'm going to call the vote at this time, and I'm going to take a roll call vote. Bill, I'll start with you.
A yes vote is for it, right?
Is yes, to approve the study.
Yes.
David?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Brian?
Yes.
Cindy?
No.
Celia?
I'm going to abstain.
All right. Jim?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, the motion passes. Yes, Lauren, absolutely. Good night, Caden. Thank you for being such a good guy. All right, next, as the way we moved the agenda was the motion to approve the expenditure of $10,000 in capital improvement funds to conduct a feasibility study of the 851 building. Well, Lauren is stepping away. Let me at least try to explain this a little bit. As you have heard some discussion, the 851 building that we're in right now was originally built 26 years ago. It was one of the first buildings constructed in Celebration. This was the original school, for those of you that don't know or remember. And now we have reached the point where a number of the systems in this building are at the point where they should be replaced. So we have HVAC, we have plumbing, we have phones, we have electric, fire alarm panels, we have window replacement. Roof's good, yay. But we also have leakage, painting. So we're trying to figure out at this point what needs to be done and what the scope of that work is. So management has, wants to engage an engineering and architectural firm to provide a feasibility study to determine whether or not our funds are better spent fixing and repairing this building, or literally tearing it down and constructing a new building, because we're talking about the possibility of building onto the back and creating new space. That's a big decision to make, and it's not one that I think we should make lightly. So that's the background. I didn't ask for a motion to approve, so let me do that and we'll continue the discussion. Is there a motion to approve that item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, now discussion. Anyone want to speak to this?
This is
ahead, Sue.
for this building.
It is for this building.
What we own.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Jim?
So just to be clear, and I'm probably not the one to speak to this, but it was inferred earlier that we are spending a lot of money we don't have, that there's not implied that there's not a reserve for what we're going to address. Brian, if you could maybe address that for us, I'd appreciate that.
Sure, I'll be happy to. And let me, this goes back to my statement earlier about I haven't decided how I'm going to vote, and I don't think any other board member can honestly tell you they've decided how they're going to vote. The purpose of this work is if we found out, and I'm giving you totally make up numbers, if we found out it was going to cost $500,000 to fix everything that needed to be fixed in this building, that leads you into a very difficult conversation. If we find out it's $150,000 and it's good for another 20 years, that's a different conversation. We could, if we had to tear it down, would we turn this into a community center and go 2 or 3 stories? If this building is fine as is and we can go on back here where the activities room and fix it up better and put a 2nd story there, that's a different thing. But we can't make those decisions without better facts. And this is a building we own. We owe it to you as residents to provide you with the truth on what is going on here. And you don't want it from, you don't want a board member guessing. You actually want a professional report, which would be made available to the public saying this is the state of the building. And that conversation, so when you get down to funds, yeah, if we have to rebuild this building, we don't have the funds. I'll just give you a hint. And then we'd have to talk about, how do we talk about priorities? Do we want to consider raising debt? Is this building got a lifespan of 3 years, or does it have a lifespan of 3 months, and how would that affect things? Totally different conversation. And with no facts, I can't go further than that. But then we talk about replacement reserves, operating reserves, and how we have a strategy for this building versus any other alternative going on, which is why I voted yes on the prior expenditure, so we can have some facts. This will give you facts. It's why I told y'all we're not going to be done on August 1st. We're trying to pull together a whole bunch of information, which will be shared with you in totality. And I'm sure a lot of you will have a lot of comments. We're going to welcome those at the time, but you need information. You got to get facts to give it to you.
And also one piece of this, and Lauren, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that this study, the engineers have said they can have it to us in a very short period of time so that we can make our decisions. Cindy?
Yes, their scope of work designates they'll be done by the end of July.
Okay, great. Cindy, go ahead.
Just 2 quick things. In my mind, that there is, granted that what we find out about this building may affect the decision that our advisory group gives us ultimately. But in my mind, this is more of an urgent matter. I mean, one way or another, this has got to be done. Secondly, I just wanted to, or thirdly, I guess, Bill, you referred earlier to me throwing around some numbers and you didn't know where I got them. I was talking about what we already know for a fact it's going to cost to make the repairs in this building, $333,000. And that was in the board packet. So that's where I got those numbers. So it had nothing to do with the theater. It had to do with what we already know it's going to cost to fix what's wrong in this building.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment from the board? David?
Yes, I have a couple. Lauren just asked one, answered one with his report due by the end of July, that's fast. In their documentation, they talk about a non-invasive study. So I wonder if that's the appropriate way to go, or if there does need to be something that's more invasive. And then the larger question is, while I do fully support the idea of doing a good, thorough, external professional assessment of the, Brian was just talking about, I am not convinced that this company based on the documentation provided to us as board members, I don't get a lot of confidence. I just don't have a lot of confidence. So I'm not sure that this is the right company. How many companies were vetted? And why would this one be the one that would come forward? The documentation is more, to me, more fluff than substance. And I also defer to Bill with his extensive experience with managing structural sorts of contracts, what he reads into this.
Look, before we go to
Not
Bill.
to put you on the
Warren-
spot, Bill.
Okay. Warren, do you want to respond? You're on mute. You're muted, Warren.
I would say in terms of however many engineering firms we looked at a number of different firms. We've used this firm for other projects in Celebration. We use this firm and another one quite frequently because we know they're reliable. And the benefit of this firm is they have an architectural arm as part of them. So that adds added value to their report for us in terms of whether it's more fiscally responsible to tear down and rebuild or expand on the existing.
Okay.
Any other comments from the board? All right,
I'd be interested in hearing Bill talk.
Oh, go ahead, Bill. I'm sorry.
Bill, you're on mute too.
I don't know the company, but I was relying on management's review of the company. And I didn't see anything to worry me because if they have experience, that should be adequate. As far as David's comment about what I call, is what's called forensic analysis, I always like to put that into this sort of stuff, at the very least as an alternate, because sometimes you have to knock some holes in the wall to see what's in the wall. And that's all we're really talking about here. Sounds fancy, but it's like, is the pipe leaking? I don't know. Let's take a look. It's that kind of stuff. And the issue from the contractor's point of view is their responsibility for fixing the hole and stuff. And that's usually surmounted by saying, okay, we'll fix it, but you got to get our approval first. So I would like that if it's a way to add a little extra cost in case we want it. If they're standing there and say, boy, I wish I knew it was in the wall. Can we knock a hole? I think I'd prefer that only because sometimes you get to that point and you see moisture and you don't see a leak and you think there could be something more here.
So that would be a change order if it was needed, correct? Correct. Okay, I think we can absorb that. All right, at this point, I'm going to call the vote. We'll take a roll call vote. Jim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Celia?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion passes 7-0. Next is the voter registration activities on CROA properties. The history here, well, actually, let me ask for a motion to approve. The motion would be to permit resident groups to invite candidates or political office holders for an event at communal locations, including voter registration events on CROA property, subject to statutory authority and legal guidelines.
So moved.
Okay, second?
Sure. Second.
Discussion. Let me just say that the reason that we want legal review is to make sure that we are complying with statute 720. There are some requirements around political events. We want to make sure that what we do is appropriate. This would include voter registration here at the 851 building. It would include Lakeside. It would permit, and this is a nonpartisan event. And so we just want to make sure that we are operating properly. And so we're simply asking our attorney to draft a series of guidelines that can be enforced across the board, right?
And we're going to at least inform CCDD so they don't try to
Yes.
play sheriff.
We hope so. We hope so. But you know, their property is their property and Lexington's property is their property, and we don't have anything to say about that.
All I want to have somebody say you can't do this, even if.
Any comment from the board? Questions? Celia?
So we're gonna open up this building.
Under specific guidelines. So it's not 24/7, 7 days a week, not in every room, not it back in the management offices. In other words, we have to set some what's called reasonable use guidelines. And the statute says that not only can we do that, but we should do it. Our legal counsel has told us that we should set up those guidelines so that everyone understands what's possible and not possible. And that way there's no confusion and there's no claims of favoritism one way or the other.
So down in Food Truck Friday, in regards to what Elena said, there was the State Farm and there was the real estate. Food Truck Friday draws a lot of people from out of our community. So that would be a great place for.
Well, this would be permitted under this
So
because
that
it's
would be a
our,
good
it's our
thing.
event, it's our property, but we would set up guidelines so that you can't be trying to get somebody to register to vote before they can buy a hot dog, right?
No, they can just walk up to the table freely if they see somebody there.
I'm being semi-facetious. I'm
Yeah, I
just,
know, but-
I'm just trying to say that you have to have guidelines. That's what Tom Slayton has told us. So we're trying to comply with that. Any other comments or questions?
Do you know how long it's gonna take for him to do that?
Oh, I think he's ready now, isn't he, Lauren?
I'm asking for the people in the audience.
Yeah.
We'll have those guidelines ready for you by the next board meeting in July.
Just for the audience, there's Florida law, there's county law. We're going to follow it.
David?
Yeah, just, and with the guidelines, part of what we're saying is this is not political. The guidelines would probably say something like political parties cannot show their wares at a voter registration event, something like that, whatever is allowable or not allowable in the law.
I think that's the letter that we've seen from Tom already.
Yeah, and then there would be what would the consequences be should there be violation of the policies that we set up?
You lose the right to register voters at that spot. I mean.
Yeah, so then the whoever's sponsoring this, that right gets pulled. Or that opportunity gets pulled.
But it would be state and county law. If they break state and county law, they're subject to prosecution. If they
Yeah.
do it, they should be prosecuted. And we would.
I'm sure everyone's going to be a good actor, but you know, I don't want to go
Okay.
too deeply into the woods. We're trying to do something good here. Let's
Okay.
go ahead and do that. Let's just make sure everybody
Good.
understands.
To register voters, you have to go through a
Good.
process.
Okay.
Yeah, and
At
there's a
this time,
time
I'm
and
gonna
place
call the vote.
and protocols.
Yeah, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Can I just make one comment, which is thank you to people in the audience and online who brought this back up again. We did more research. It was, some people say, is there value in talking? We do listen, we follow up, and it brings positive change. So thank you.
Next is item number, I think it's 5, but don't quote me on this. It's a motion to approve 6 resident fee waiver requests. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries
Aye.
7-0. Well, 6-0, but I think Brian did yes as he walked out the door. Motion number 6, a motion to approve a new 3-year smart city contract in the amount of $22,005 out of CROA operational funds. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion. Jose, you want to tell us what this is about?
Absolutely. You want me to stand up?
Sure. Everybody can see you. That's,
Come on.
well, they can't see you because the cameras are working, but. they can hear
Usually
you.
nobody volunteers to stand.
By the way, for those who
That's what
don't
I
know,
do.
this is Jose Otero. He is our new director of
IT.
IT. Yeah, welcome. Glad to have you here.
So folks, hi, how are you? It's good to stand here because I get to see wonderful folks. So that's great. First things first, we have an antiquated phone systems. For those of you who know, we have something called POTS lines. All right, and basically the technology is so old that it's being phased out. So pretty much the FCC is ruling on or they already decided on removing copper lines because one, it's becoming costly. And two, to dig them in and to put them on poles more expensive. So they decided to go digital, which is called voice over IP or voice over. First thing is that it's cost effective. Secondly, you get more features. So for example, in our existing setup, it's very difficult to reach directly. With a new system like that, and or you have a board facing to this location, and you can also route to land matters if you need to. Not only that, we can set up a litany and set up a call queue or set up something called a help group, which allows us to follow employees in different departments. So if call goes and brings from one department, it'll go to the next individual in the same group. So it's a lot of technology talk, a lot of great tech that we want to bring in, and you know, I think it's just a forward-moving approach to communications overall. It's like that's essentially what we do here. We communicate and share information. So yeah.
So is this specifically for VoIP?
So this is specifically for VoIP, but the great thing about it is we get a 3-year service level agreement, which includes support for the conferencing systems. So that's another added bonus. And as you can see, we're facing technical difficulties with the cameras. So, you know, this will add another layer of support, especially the hardware.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Cindy?
I was straining to hear you a little bit because you were turned that way. Did I hear you say that calls would begin coming back here?
Well, it is up to when we sit down with the members that are going to work on this project, what the call flow should be. And whatever that is and gets determined, then at that point, we will set it up.
Right.
So
yes,
the budgeted amount says 10,489 and this says 2,205 for 3 years. So is this actually coming in under budget? Is that how I should
that is
read it?
correct. So it is.
So this is a money saver and a service
that is
enhancement.
correct.
Perfect.
All right. Any other, Lauren, did you have something?
I was just gonna mention the financial savings, but Brian beat me to it.
All right. Any other comments?
Just don't hurt them.
All right, I'm gonna.
I have a question. Sorry.
Got to come up.
So real quick.
Before you do that, come on up. Is there anything else from the board before we do that? Okay, go ahead.
Sure.
Just tell us who you are.
Anil, 203 Reserve Place. If we're doing a feasibility study for this building, we want to put in a new phone system now, can we pack it up if we were to knock this place down?
Absolutely.
We can do that.
Because it's digital. It resides at the headquarters that's servicing us.
That's
okay. All right, everybody heard that answer? All right. I'm going to go ahead and call the motion. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
Aye.
7. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jose. Last action item is a motion to approve pool repairs at Heritage Hall by CES in the amount of $28,903 from CROA replacement reserve funds. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Discussion.
My question for Lauren was, and I had sent an email, so I'll just for the sake of the audience, I've heard conversations over the last couple of years about the quality of the Heritage Hall pool in general. This here appears to be a change that's required by law, so we really don't seem to have a choice. But if we had this, do we know the status of the pool? Is it good for 10 years? Is it good for 10 months? Or do we have any input there?
So in terms of the pool itself, we don't have any indication at this time that there's anything specifically wrong with the pool or the pool system. It doesn't appear that the chlorine damaged the saline system, so we're operating under that assumption right now after experts have looked at it. The question comes in with the pool decking. There are some cracks in there, and I believe a couple of the board members have gone out and viewed it in person. We're bringing out a company to look at it that specializes in sinkholes, just to make sure that there's no major issues there. If there are, then we'll bring that to your attention. We're just hoping it's just settlement cracks after that Bill noted, but we'll see when we get that report back.
Any other questions, comments?
This $28,000 has nothing to do with the cracks. It has to do with converting it back
to salt.
It started as chlorine, and then we changed it to salt water, and then they changed it back to chlorine, and now we want to change it back to salt water.
think we're required to, aren't we?
Yeah, because it's on the permit that it's saline underneath the health department.
Yeah.
I think that's why we're doing it.
So
So-
that slipped through the cracks when
Yes,
they did
it
that.
did.
Pun intended. I think pun intended, right?
All right, any other comments? All right, take a vote. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. All right, we are now to the discussion items. Let's start with management update. I don't know who's doing that. Is it Natalie or Lauren? Or did I
If
miss some-
somebody can switch to that page and then I can start going through it.
I'm sorry, say that again. We were,
Can you click on the hyperlink so I can see the? I don't have access to the Z drive right now. Okay. Sorry. So
make
staffing.
that a lot bigger.
Yeah, there you go.
Staffing, we have 2 vacancies, the resident services coordinator, that's a front counter position, and the IT administrator, which has been the kind of the Achilles heel in terms of trying to find a hire. But Jose is actively interviewing, and we have a couple of people going under interviews right now for the resident services coordinator, and then we will be fully staffed. So finally, we're getting there. Community standards. In June, the town hall inspectors focused on the cleaning category, of the finding categories. 645 violations were sent out between June 1st and June 30th. In addition to initial inspections, they also did 300 re-inspections, 32 resale inspections, 14 complaint follow-ups, and 18 ARC reviews. So they're out there, they're getting things looked at, they're getting things done, and they're doing a great job.
Can I ask a
Operation-
question?
Yes.
We had to comment earlier in this meeting about the letters and stuff like that. You just have any follow-up?
I do.
So yeah,
Go
Roger
ahead.
has some follow-up on that.
I'm
one.
happy to wait. if you-
Roger.
Go ahead, Roger. You got a microphone.
No, so so Lauren reported the 600 some violation letters that went out. We've identified through the help of our IT department and our and Grand Manners, we know that there were 65 unit owners that received 9 letters instead of just 1. So some sort of glitch in the printing process. But I have all 65. I'm gonna reach out to them personally and apologize. And then the question, I think also about the billing, the association's only billed per the violation notice ID, not per the number of letters printed. So that'll be fine.
So it didn't cost us money, and computers sometimes have glitches.
Yep, and we know the 65 folks, I got the list. Corbin and I became aware of this about 2:00 today. About an hour ago, we got the 65 owners, and I'll reach out to them personally.
Thank you.
They were all from the same day too, so.
One day.
Yeah.
So we could decrease that 645 by whatever 9 times 65 is?
No, because the 600 are the violation IDs.
Oh, okay.
Right. It's just for some reason, the software printed 9 duplicates of the same ID letter.
So did it go out in 9 different envelopes?
Yeah.
So that did cost extra money though.
Well, it cost us more.
And stamp
Lo-
shops, I think.
Lauren,
Yeah.
It didn't cost us money. They're
No, I
paid.
know, I was just saying that stamps went up to 60 cents now to mail something.
Okay. David, did you have a question?
Lauren, a quick question on that. 645 violations over the month of June. How many homes were inspected during that time? Do you or Natalie know that?
It's almost
I have-
every home in Celebration. It's over 1,700 homes, a single family home
Okay,
and townhome.
okay.
It's,
Okay.
Stephanie
we
needs to answer
were
that.
still in the
Go ahead.
transition phase of
Lauren.
training new
Got it.
employees. So we almost did the entire community in 1 month.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Stephanie,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Sorry, that's the inspection numbers that Lauren was giving, but out of the 645, 609 homes were hit
Okay.
with violations. That's all I wanted.
Good, very good. Thank you.
And the next focus, Stephanie, is on what?
Right now in July, we're doing landscaping. In August, we're going to be focused on more of the miscellaneous items, leaving signs out, no
So
advertising.
landscaping is what's coming next. So
That's coming, that's active now.
It's actually started July 1st.
landscaping. All right. All right. Thank you. Go ahead, Lauren. Anything else?
Not on community standards. I'll move on to operations. We had 37 projects completed in June, 44 new projects were initiated, and 30 projects are currently in progress. When that website comes back up, we'll be deploying a new web page to show before and after pictures of all the projects that we've been working on, as well as the project maintenance matrix that Natalie has, so everybody can be informed of what we're doing, where we're doing it, and when.
I'm going to ask you, unless there's any other highlights, just in the interest of time, is there anything else? We've got the report in the package. Anything else you want to call to our attention?
I don't believe so. Those are kind of the main highlights.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on. The next item, let's see, the call center executive summary, is that part of your?
That's part of this one. If you keep going on.
Operation projects, community standards. Okay, so are we now to technology projects? Is that correct?
Yes, we can move on.
Okay, so we have 4 technology projects that we wanted to get reported on. Tom Hull from the,
No.
no.
Well, I'm gonna report on something else.
Oh,
Yeah, he's gonna do something.
Jose's going to report.
You gonna talk to me?
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right, so as for the first project, it's the website migration. We currently are in progress of migrating, well, we completed the migration of the site. Now we're working on fixing and correcting the plugins that existed in the previous setup. It looks like the plugins that they had on WordPress were antiquated, and we're just revising it and picking out the newer ones, and the ones that meet security compliance. Part of that website migration to the new company is that now we have a service level agreement with them, and now we know who to contact when we need it, when something is not working.
And when will that be completed?
That should estimate about another 4 to 5 days for migration to complete.
All right, how about the meeting live stream? I'm sorry, moving to.
No, not a problem. Meeting live stream was set up and tested. I want to make sure that when it's working when the website is out and running, so that way, once it finishes recording and doing the live stream, it saves automatically to the website.
Okay. Person detection.
So good news, today I set up Spring Park, and the only one that's left is Spring Lake. So testing will begin tonight for Spring Park, and you will get an alert if it works. So
Okay.
What kind of detection do you?
Human detection.
It's to detect people coming onto CROA properties after hours, correct?
We're gonna do the alert, the thing that artisans do.
Think of it like a Ring doorbell, but like for a park or a pool or.
Yeah, okay.
So who monitors it? Like,
Our security company, right?
okay.
Okay, and phone system, we've already talked about. Okay, thank you very much. Look at how fast we moved through this.
I do want to say something else before he talks about the website migration. As many people know, we've had problems with the vendor that we have had. And we have too many times that the site was down. I followed this journey to the new vendor, and Jose did an excellent job finding someone very quickly, getting them to get a quote back very quickly, and getting them to start. And so just to be clear, if this new company was migrating a working site, we would already be back up. So as Jose said, basically they did that. They moved everything over. Now they're fixing stuff. So, but the vendor we had before was we just had a couple contact people. This particular vendor specializes in WordPress and is a fairly large company.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on. Next item is special projects update. We've already talked about the 851 feasibility study and the theater feasibility and engineering studies. Lot D pickleball. Lauren, can you bring us up to speed very quickly on where we are on that study?
But yeah, we're waiting to schedule the 60% approval phase. I'm just waiting on KPMF to give me their dates so I can share them with the SMEs, and we'll all get together and do that final approval on the 60% phase.
All right, so we're moving forward there. Yes. go ahead.
Then when that happens, we'll be ready to go out and get bids, right, Lauren?
Correct.
And we had always targeted August 1st as the date to probably go out and get bids. So we're on
We're on the critical path here. Okay.
I think,
Did I miss something?
I don't think it was clear that we put it on here. We wanted to put more items under technology project.
I'm getting there. Technology committee
Oh, it's
project.
down there, okay.
Okay, I'm getting there. I just didn't see it in the right spot. All right, the item B was irrigation and drainage. I just want to call the board's attention to the fact that we're going to have infrastructure month or year coming. We have invested all this money in landscaping and repairs, and our irrigation systems are in need of repair. Some of you will remember, David and Brian will remember that we had a discussion a few years ago about water irrigation controllers. We decided at the time to table it because of the expense and the fact that CCDD controlled it, and it actually was a cost savings to us. We're going to have to revisit all of that. And so management is working on some studies for us to give us some information.
We actually have this from Dayco.
Okay, but I'm not ready to talk about it tonight. So I'm just saying it's on the horizon, and you should, prepare yourself for that.
And the technology committee is.
Yes, part of, they're working on the controllers. Yes. Okay.
I can tell you right now, it's being irrigated outside.
We are hoping to stay dry in this well-designed building. All right. That leads us to the technology committee projects update. The technology committee has been very active. We appreciate very much what they're doing. Tom Hull's the chair of that committee, and I know you've got some other members of the committee here to speak tonight. So yeah, you get 10 minutes.
Okay, great. I need 10 minutes.
Okay.
Just on the smart irrigation. I established contact with a company that does these controllers. There are a number of different companies that do these smart controllers. I have one at my own house, and I do look at the data monthly, and I'm saving between 30 and 60% of my reuse bill. Like, for example, right now. These controllers are very intelligent devices. People tend to dismiss it because it's lawn watering. They think it's simple. They're very complicated. They look at evaporation rates from the soil. They look at the wind conditions, and they make estimations of how much water is in the soil if we don't actually measure the moisture content. There are sensors to do just that. So we just really got started on this a second time. We started on this once before, you might remember, and you mentioned it, and then we kind of were put that on hold. So we'll look into that more and give you more details, and at some point at the appropriate point. But we would like to make sure that we don't duplicate efforts with management and be running in a parallel path, doing something at the same time. We'd like to actually collaborate with you guys to make sure and involve you in whatever we're doing, of course.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. The other topic before I turn it over to John. Kiosks. We at one point, you may not know that we looked at replacing the little sign that by Lake Ranghart that has a map. It's a wooden box. It belongs to CCDD, this box. It doesn't do anything. It's got a map in there. If you've ever tried to look at it, you have to get down and look at it really close. And we were asked to put a proposal on the table to update that to a smart kiosk, something like you would see over at Disney Springs. We wrote up a proposal. It was quite complicated because there's a lot at stake. A lot of engineering that goes into a smart sign. There's temperature considerations, there's wind, there's vandalism. How do you communicate with it? How do you update its content? There's a lot of details. We submitted it to CCDD and then they shot it down for reasons that we don't understand even today. We've been asked to resurrect that and look at that as a potential, at a new potential location at Lakeside. You guys have to tell us. You're looking. The scrunched forehead gets me a little nervous because I don't want to do the work a second time if you don't want it. So you guys have to decide if this is something we want or you want to do or not.
All right, so we have to put it on a future. Okay.
So finally, I'm going to turn over to John Greenberg. We are going to stay in front of you a lot on autonomous vehicles. We don't want a repeat of the whole episode that we had with the charging stations where people thought we were doing everything behind closed doors. So now we are going to be here and we're going to be incessant. We're going to be in front of your face a lot to let you know what are we doing with autonomous vehicles so that no one would be able to say that they didn't know we were working on this. And John is an expert and he will give you an update as to where we stand.
Great, thank you.
Not an expert in autonomous vehicles, but so John Greenberg and Neil were part of the technology committee. So we've had 2 meetings with Beep and we've had some board members come with us. So just my background, I've been an engineer with Apple for over 20 years. Actually part of this community for a long time. I was a keynote speaker at the school in '99. We installed video, we installed servers. That school, our school was the best in the nation back then. We've gone backwards over the last 20 years of technology. So I'm really excited to be part of our team and what we're talking about with technology. So the 2 Beep meetings we had, with Brandon Garcia this past week, he came, we went for a ride, we did a tour through the things. We started out with the first meeting a couple weeks ago, last month, looking at technology, went for a ride on it. I'm familiar with some of these technologies that they use for the LiDAR and the light sensing on it, uses cellular technology. But our conversations around it is about the vision to connect our community, right? Our community is growing, Island Vision is growing. We heard a lot tonight about parking and using people and technology and green energy. And to look at the vision of to start, and we talked to Brandon about this, is taking people through Celebration Boulevard with this autonomous vehicle, starting with stops to get people to downtown, to Publix. But the technology is advancing so quickly. 2023, we're going to see a big advance in autonomous vehicles. The technology, again, is going super fast. To be able to vision, to be able to go through our community, opening up your phone, get the app, come pick you up at the house, drop you off, go to the next person to take you. Think about getting to the different parts of the community. Think about what's going on right now with Celebration Boulevard. The speeds of these vehicles are going to increasing each of the next years, 2023 and 2024. Pete was talking to us about to be able to take us down to the new center down on Celebration Boulevard, because those buses can go up to 40 miles an hour. So again, all this is moving. We're excited about it. We're gathering information right now. We're asking great questions. We have a fantastic technology team. We're really pushing hard with the questions, the feasibility around it, the impact of our community, and then even expanding that, getting people to the hospital, working with Malia to bring people from Malia that want to come downtown and not bring their cars with them. Maybe futuristic, take something down World Drive and get us to Disney without bringing our cars down there, right? So all these things are possible. It's growing. We're excited about it. Like Tom said, we want to stay in front of you, share the information we have. And I think this is something that we really benefit our community and really put us in the forefront again, like we were 20 years ago when we first started this town.
Thank you. We will look forward to those reports and that stuff. All right. With that, thank you very much for the work that you guys are doing and folks are doing. With that, we are now to board comments. Bill, any board comments?
No, I'm good.
All right. David?
No, thank you.
Okay. Ryan?
2. I want to reiterate, board members do listen. We did voting tonight, but we've done other things. But how do we listen? We listen at town halls. We responded to the last town hall. We responded to comments from the public at these meetings. We get talked about in person. I get talked about on the golf course all the time about CROA stuff. We read emails. We don't specialize in Facebook because that turns too negative and it just drives us nuts. But we do listen. If you want to affect the board, and it's going to be important as we go through the whole Celebration Hall thing, talk to a board member. Everybody up here may have very different sets of friends and very different opinions, but we do listen, we do share feedback, and we try to do what's right. Celia had brought something up which didn't get done with here, but I'd love to put it on the future agenda. I understand town hall personnel was here at 1 a.m. in the morning on the 4th of July. So Lauren, what I would like to request is that we actually put a recap of July 4th on end of July or 1st of August. Exactly what did town hall do to what time, so that we can understand when we as board members make certain decisions, who we're impacting and how we need to change the process going forward. That's my comments.
Cindy?
The other thing that I'd like to ask again is to have a microphone for these meetings on that thing. We had it for 1 or 2 meetings, now it's disappeared, and I had some difficulty hearing, especially when people were talking there and the rain going on. I couldn't hear what was going on. So I would just like to make that request. Thank you very much.
Andy? Celia?
Okay, and to pick up on what Brian said, if the whole Grand Manus team was out there 4th of July, as a board member, I thought they were just at Lakeside, taking care of the residents at Lakeside. But at the special events meeting yesterday, I discovered that this group was taking care of everything in town. setting up tents for the restaurants, cleaning, doing you guys rock. I am so proud of this team, but I still think that other people should have taken a little responsibility in town, helping with what happened. So I don't know, moving forward, if, like Brian said, let's get it on the agenda and discuss it. Anyway, Roger. Corbin, Italian guy. This team rocks. You should be so proud of them.
We are.
They really do an awesome job. Because last year at this time, we were crying. So thank you.
Second, Cindy's, because we have sometimes rarely agree that there should be a mic up there. So I agree with you on that.
Well,
Thank you for
great.
bringing it up. I know
Thank
there's
you for that.
some areas we agree. And that's it.
A couple of items. First of all, I want to thank all of the staff for being here. I want to thank you for all of your work on July 4th. It was an amazing event.
Amazing.
We had tons of people here. It was safe. I'm very grateful for that. I appreciate what a great event it was. And I appreciate that so many of you were out here talking to residents and being part of the experience. And we are very grateful for the hours that you spent away from your families, or in some cases, pulling your families to be with you. I know Stephanie's son was totally not in favor of that. But anyway, we appreciate that. We appreciate Corbin and Roger being here as always. And we're appreciative of all of that effort. We raised earlier a quick question about Lakeside, and I wanted to just be explicit. We have approved the playground replacement at Lakeside, but we are not yet moving on that pending what the advisory group tells us. So it's not that we're not doing it. We're just holding to make sure that we're not making a bad decision. Okay, so that's, I wanted to cover that. To those of you who are here tonight, we appreciate your comments. I suspect at times you think we're not listening to you, but I would echo what Brian says. We do listen. It's not always appropriate for us to engage in a conversation with you during a board meeting about these things, but I take notes. We listen, we talk about it as board members. We care about what the community is saying. And I'll go back to what I've said at the beginning. We're not here to be right. We're here to get it right. We continue to try and get it right. And I would think that we've demonstrated that in a number of places tonight. And you may not agree with the decisions we've made, but the decisions are being made on the basis of what we think is the best interest of the community. Let's all have a little bit of grace towards one another to assume that we might disagree with the decisions, we might even disagree with the tactics, but we don't disagree with the motivations. And if we can get to that point, I think that raises us as a community just a little bit higher. So I appreciate that. With that, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Yep.
I'll second.
Those in favor? We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Does yep count as a motion? Does yep count as a motion?